Support for the Brülosophy podcast comes from the following. Love to Brew is a national leader in homebrewing supplies, offering exclusive products such as East Coast yeast, TV taps, and Brülosophy recipe kits, all with free shipping on orders over $75. When you need brewing ingredients or equipment, check out Love to Brew at love2brew.com. The best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world. Find everything from classics to modern favorites, as well as cool experimental varieties and a vast array of ingredients and gear at yakimavalleyhops.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Brülosophy podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Schott, and we've got a pretty fun-packed show planned for you all today. Hey, Malcolm, have you finally recovered from Homebrew Con yet?
I think I have a liver coming to me in the mail. I ordered it via Prime, so hopefully it'll show up here soon.
You ordered a new liver on Amazon Prime?
Yeah, 2 days.
2 days. 2-day delivery. If you're really lucky, you can get it on 1 day. I love that same day shipping. So, well, hey, I'm really excited. Homebrew Con is going to be in Portland, Oregon next year, right? And we kind of got some word about that a little bit earlier. I think it's pretty rad. Portland, Oregon's an awesome beer city. But even more exciting than that to me is the fact that the AHA has finally decided to push Homebrew Con to the end of June, which means that parents with kids are in school no longer have to worry about missing year-end events. I think that's pretty rad, and want to thank the AHA for doing that for us.
Yeah, and I won't have to do the Miss Father's Day thing.
I was lucky enough to get home in time to go out to dinner on Father's Day with my kids, and that was a lot of fun. But honestly, if you're a home brewer, there's no better event on earth than Homebrew Con. Get to this thing, put it on your calendar, start saving up now. It's totally worth it. I'm sure you won't regret it. You can get more information about Homebrew Con 2018 at the American Homebrewers Association website. All right, before we get into the show, I want to give a couple shout outs. One of the final things that happens at Homebrew Con is the awards ceremony, which this year was a little bit different than it's been in the past. They usually have like what they call the grand banquet, where everybody comes together and eats food, and there's like a beer pairing, and then they announce all of the awards. Well, this year what they did is they separated the award ceremony from what they're now calling the knockout party. Anyway, before announcing the winners of the National Homebrew Competition during the ceremony, the governing committee gives out a few awards, one of which is the American Homebrewers Association Governing Committee Recognition Award. It's a mouthful. Past winners include folks like Janice Gross, Gordon Strong, John Palmer, Stan Hieronymus, a distinguished list of people who I'm sure everyone has heard of who have had a huge impact on homebrewing altogether. Well, the winner this year was someone who has undoubtedly changed the world of homebrewing for the better, and in my opinion was incredibly deserving. Congratulations to Justin Crossley from the Brewing Network. I can't help but imagine where we would be as a hobby if it wasn't for the effort that he's invested in teaching all of us, him and the BN, in teaching all of us to brew better beer. I mean, they've been around for so long, they're kicking ass, and they really are changing homebrewing for the better, in my opinion. And Justin, if you're listening, cheers, my man.
Hey, one of the best parts about that was his reaction. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he had no idea he was going to win that award, and I think that just made it all the better.
I agree.
The next congratulations I want to give hits a little bit closer to home. Brülosophy's own Malcolm Fraser, who's on the line with us right now. Not only our highest ranked BJCP judge, but easily the most competitive of all of us, I think, in terms of entering homebrew competitions. Malcolm, you've been entering the National Homebrew Competition for how long now? 4 years. So for 4 years, and you've had a ton of beers go through the first round, but you'd never really taken home a medal.
That's right. Yeah, it gets frustrating, but it also lets you know how good everybody else is. You know, it's hard to win.
Yeah, I mean, there's awesome brewers out there, and I'm telling you right now, it was super exciting when your name got announced as the bronze medal winner for your California Common, which I believe I was lucky enough to try.
Yeah, I think I had, well, you were probably crushed. I had some in the room. We were drinking some at the end of the night one night. But yeah, it was one of the few times I've ever cheered for winning a bronze. I was pretty excited.
I mean, dude, that is an accomplishment to win a bronze among so many great brewers and so many wonderful beers, for you to take home that medal and to see you walk up on stage and take that photo next to Gary. It was just super exciting for our crew of people who were hanging out at the ceremony. And I'm really proud of you, man. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. It actually felt pretty good because we had a good cheering section with all the guys from Brew United and fellow bloggers, you know, so it definitely had a better feel doing it in front of some friends. Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Hey, what do you think about making your recipe for that Cal Common the next reward for our Patreon supporters?
No problem. Yeah. I'm gonna give a shout out to John Boyd. He won with Gatekeeper a couple years ago, I think 2015. It's an iteration of his recipe. I started working on it shortly after he brewed it, and I like the style. I like the bitter with the light caramel, and I like Northern Brewer hops. So I'll definitely share the recipe. It'd just basically be my touches and my adjustments for his winning recipe from 2015.
And if you want that recipe, you can head over to patreon.com/Brülosophy. Check out the ways that you can support us and receive rewards back for doing so. For $1 a month, you get a never before published recipe from a Brülosophy contributor. One of the coolest things to me about events like Homebrew Con is hanging out with rad people. And this year I had the opportunity to meet a bunch of Brülosophy fans. Partially, I think that was built in because of the pre-funk party that we hosted. But, we got a lot of good feedback on the podcast and all the stuff we're doing over at the website. I just wanted to say you guys truly are the reason we're here, as cheesy as that sounds, and we love you so much. In addition to Patreon, if you'd like to throw some support our way, you can head over to brülosophy.com/support, where you'll find a list of links you can use when you do your shopping at places like Amazon, More Beer, Love to Brew, Adventures in Homebrewing, and a bunch of other places. You won't notice a difference in your shopping experience, and we'll get a small kickback that helps us to continue bringing you all of this content. We really do appreciate it. All of your support is it's the best thing for us because it allows us to do this thing that we love so much. All right. Another thing, please subscribe to the podcast. Yeah. If you can follow the podcast or subscribe in whatever, however you listen to podcasts. That way you get an indication every time we release a new show. You don't have to wait for us to tell you about it. All right. Well, we've got some special guests on today's show. As hardcore fans of Brülosophy undoubtedly know, we are really into using these crazy-looking immersion chillers made by JaDeD Brewing. Now, I get asked about the Hydra and the King Cobra more than any other product we've reviewed, which is probably due, at least in part, to the fact that those were some of the first products we ever reviewed on the website, but also because they're just badass immersion chillers, and they look kind of weird. Anyways, because of all these questions, I thought it'd be a lot of fun to have the dudes behind JaDeD on the show to talk about their product themselves, give a little bit of background about the company, and even touch a little bit on how they got hooked up with Brülosophy. Clay and Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Marshall.
Yeah, it's great to be on the podcast.
So you guys have kind of been in business for about the same amount of time Brülosophy's been around.
Right around there, yeah. I think we got like almost a year on you, but pretty close.
So how did you guys, one of the things that I've been wondering personally, and I'm surprised we haven't talked about this in the times that we've hung out and drank beers together, how in the world did you guys get into immersion chiller making?
Well, we both worked together at a engineering firm. That was like stinking like 10 years ago now. But we worked together there and then started brewing together, home brewing, and then realized that there was a gap between immersion chiller and plate chiller. And we found the gap and we made it a lot better. So we just started messing around with different designs and then realized that we actually had really good ideas and we could really make something that was really efficient, water efficient, and time efficient. And so it just kind of started from there, from in a garage to now JaDeD.
So efficient is one thing, and that they are. I mean, that you save massive amounts of water and you save massive amounts of time. The design of your chillers, and I think in particular the two most popular are, well, the most popular has got to be the Hydra, and then followed behind that is the King Cobra. They just are so wonky looking. Like you guys have done. I mean, there's a lot of people who have designed some weird looking chillers in an attempt to get more surface area so that the wort chills faster. But you guys have done something a lot different by splitting. You guys split I'll let you guys describe it.
Yeah, it's not just surface areas that comes into play with that. One of the things we learned during our testing is it's how you use the surface area. And so there's a few more things that come into play, but like you said, with the splitting of the lines, we effectively were able to use 3 25-foot coils for both the Hydra and King Cobra. Because they each have a cold water feed, it's essentially using 3 chillers in one. And so, and that's one of the things we hadn't seen anybody do before. and have yet to see someone do it currently. And it just really, with the 3/8 inch tubing, it gives you a really good, efficient use of the water. And then with the multiple feeds, in addition to that, you get the extra chilling power of the again, like the 3 chillers in one.
I was going to say, for sake of discussion, if you can imagine like a 10-inch pipe and you can shove chilling water through there, you're going to waste a lot of that chilling power because the area in the center isn't doing anything. It's just going through the chiller. So with what Jeremy was saying, the 3/8 inch pipe or 3/8 inch tubing, it maximizes the efficiency of the water going through. All the water going through is taking as much thermal capacity out of your wort the most effectively.
Yeah, and I mean, people ask me, and it's funny, you know, I think this says a lot about our culture. But people will email me privately, and they're like, you know, hey man, or you know, is your experience with the Hydra or the King Cobra really as good as you wrote about? Like, who do you think I am? Of course it is. I'm not making stuff up. and I mean, it happens all the time. But I think the reason for that, in large part, is because it works. It almost is too good to be true how fast these chillers work. And people are looking and saying, well, you know, it's a pricey piece of gear. It really is. Chillers in general tend to be pretty pricey. And they're looking and saying, but is it really worth it? And you know, if time is valuable to you, then as it is to me, then I do think it's worth it. And that kind of brings me to how we became how we came into contact. If I recall, I think Jeremy was telling me this story at Homebrew Con, but I don't remember it terribly clearly because of the context. But if I recall, yeah, say what? It was about like 4 or 5 years ago. I had a terrible experience with a plate chiller, and I guarantee people will be able to relate with this. I cleaned my plate chiller after every use, and regardless of how well I cleaned it, what I used to clean it with, that first when I would go to recirculate hot boiling wort through it so that it would sanitize so that I wouldn't contaminate my beer during chilling, it would always blow black chunks of whatever into my boiling wort, and it just grossed me out. It started to piss me off, and so I went on this Google search galore for the best immersion chiller, and I eventually stumbled upon some YouTube videos of you guys, and I'll never forget. It was like they were like, you know, sped up. And somebody drinking a pint of beer and like, you know, doing the weirdest thing with a chiller that I'd ever seen, which was like bouncing it in and out of a kettle of wort with a timer on it. And it got me interested. And so I ended up emailing you guys to ask about your product. And that was kind of the beginning of this love story, right?
It really was. It's funny. Is one of those things where you emailed us. We had at least 12 or 13 emails back and forth before you even ended up buying something from us. And we had just finished up the testing on the Hydra at that point, which is something we do for all the chillers that we have, is we go through a testing phase. And so in those emails, I mean, there were multiple single page emails, like full of text that we went back and forth with.
We were geeking out. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, my thing was, this was before Brülosophy was a thing. I think this was, I really started getting into the Brülosophy website around February or March of 2014. And I'm pretty sure my first email to you guys was like late 2013.
No, it was like early 2013. I know because I looked it up. It was like February 2013.
Yeah. So our relationship really did blossom from something way before Brülosophy. And if I went on, I saw your crazy designs. I saw what you guys were doing on YouTube, and I still made the decision to buy a standard 50-foot by half-inch coil chiller, right?
You did. We were, to say we were disappointed is to put it lightly, Marshall. We had so much back and forth, and we really thought, like, this guy could do amazing things for us if we can just convince him to get the chiller that we know is going to be the fastest for him. And you bought the half-inch 50-footer, and you almost broke our heart.
And well, I remember when I bought it, and I remember emailing you after my first use and being like, "Yeah, you guys, this chiller works great." And the response was something like, "Yeah, but it would work a lot better if it was one of these other chillers." Oh, so anyways, I went up camping. I'd been using the 50-foot chiller for a while. I think we'd stopped talking for a couple of months, and I went up camping. And I every year I go up to the Kings River here, and we do a whitewater rafting trip, and we're completely off the grid. And so after 5 or 6 days of camping, I'm cruising down the hill, and my phone starts blowing up as it usually does. You know, there's all these emails and messages, and I'll never forget just scrolling through just to make sure I didn't miss anything super important, and seeing an email from JaDeD, and you guys had asked. Now, Brülosophy was a thing at this point. I think we'd been around for about 2 or 3 months. And you said something like, "Hey, we've got this new design that we would love to get beta tested by you."
Yeah, we between when you had purchased originally and when we sent you the email, we kept getting a bunch of requests for a chiller similar to what your specs required. And so one of the things that we kind of do is if we get enough requests for something, we'll make it and test it out and see if it's viable.
Now, those specs, just to be clear, those specs were that people who have larger kettles to brew 10-gallon batches, but still want to be able to brew the occasional 5-gallon batch in their 15-gallon or bigger kettle.
Yeah, that, or if you're using like a 10-gallon, like a stock pot type kettle, a lot of the time those will have dimensions where the wort's only 4 or 5 inches tall on the bottom of those two with a 5-gallon batch. So yeah, it's so with the requests for that, we came up with the design for the King Cobra, and when we made it, we couldn't think of anyone else who'd rather have tested than you. So we sent you the email, and we got nothing back for like 2 weeks, and we were like, "What the heck?" We said we want you to test it for us. It essentially designed for your kettle, and it was essentially the version of the Hydra that you needed. And we couldn't believe it. We're like, "Oh my gosh, is he mad at us? Like what's wrong?" And so yeah, it was one of those things too. So we're just sitting around waiting, and then finally we hear back from you, and you said, you're on the trip, and we're like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I do not ignore emails, I promise. It would just so happen that I got that email. I think you must have sent it like the minute, that I got out of cell service because I used to go up for a whole week ahead of time. And nowadays it's not so long, but a couple of things I want to hit on just so that our listeners who, if they're interested in going and picking up one of your awesome chillers, they know how to use it right. When I first started testing these out, there were a couple of tips that you gave me and I mean, you were pretty adamant about, you have to do these things if you want the efficiency of time. What are those things?
It's a combination of things. The meat and potatoes of everything is water flow rate and wort movement. So whether you're stirring or agitating the wort, it needs to be done the entire time while you're chilling. And then also through both the King Cobra and the Hydra, you want to see somewhere right around 6 gallons a minute water flow rate. So as long as you're doing those two things, you're going to get the specified chilling times. So a part of, like with the water flow rate, making sure that your hoses are as short as possible, that your hose spigot is all the way open, that you're using a hose spigot. Like a garden hose spigot normally can put out 7 to 8 gallons per minute at the actual garden hose spigot. And then from there, it just decreases based on the restrictions that you put in line. If you're using something like a utility sink faucet, those can range anywhere from 2 to 4 gallons per minute, depending on how old they are. The older ones flow a little bit more than the newer ones. And then if you have a kitchen faucet, those are usually about 2 gallons a minute, and those are limited by the EPA, and they have been for quite a while. And so for people who are using a kitchen faucet, we actually recommend the Mantis over the Hydra. The Mantis is specifically designed to use that lower flow of a kitchen sink, and so the Mantis from a kitchen sink is actually a little bit faster than the Hydra.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, I also did some testing with the Mantis as well. I don't brew the smaller batches near as often as I thought I would back then, but yeah, that thing is for as small as it is a beast when it comes to chilling wort.
Yeah, and the design of it allows for, kind of as Jeremy said, the kitchen sink faucet flow rate, but also the smaller batches, the stovetop brewers, the 3 gallon, you're doing 3 gallon extract, whatever, and then topping off to 5 or whatever you're doing. The design allows for keeping, it's a lower profile than a typical chiller, and it's designed to keep all the chilling coils in the wort, even if you're doing, the smaller, we'll call them the short and shoddy batches. If you're just doing like the quick, on the oven, get it done, batches.
So Cliff Notes version of what chiller is best for the type of brewer.
Well, the Mantis, anytime you're doing inside brewing with the kitchen faucet, the Mantis hands down every time. Even if you're doing a 5 gallon batch, it'll chill a 5 gallon batch without a problem. If you're doing if you have like a normal 1.2 to 1 10 gallon kettle, the Hydra normally fits. You got to check your clearance with your thermometer and dip tube. But as long as you have 11.5 inches of clearance from the whatever protrusion you have in your kettle to the back wall of your kettle, the Hydra should be fully submerged in a 5 gallon batch in that. If you're doing a 5 gallon batch or doing split 5 and 10 gallon batches in a 15 gallon kettle, the King Cobra is going to be the one you want. It's a little bit wider, but it's so much shorter than the Hydra. It's only 4 inches tall. So in 4 inches of wort, the King Cobra is fully submerged.
Yep, I'm a King Cobra fan myself. That's the even with my 80 degree tap water, I'm getting it down to 85, 86 degrees in a matter of 8 to 9 minutes usually.
Yeah, that sounds about right. For our counterflow chillers, we only have those really for someone who has like a brew stand and insists on having like a totally hands-free type chilling situation. Our Cyclone is actually about half the speed of both the King Cobra and the Hydra. That thing takes about 7.5 minutes to chill a 5 gallon batch, whereas obviously in your own experience, you've seen the King Cobra and Hydra do it in 3 to 3.5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And so it really was brought on the market to kind of go comparable to like a Chillzilla or Chillus Convolutus. And when you run it fully open in recirculation mode without any restriction in your fittings or hoses or anything like that, it's actually a little bit faster than a Chillzilla. And you can pull the ends off, and we have a brush that we send with it, so you can actually have something that physically contacts the wort surface.
Yeah, that's one of the. I think that's one of the. I can't stand counterflow chillers. I don't care who makes it. That's my personal opinion, and that's in large part because of the conversations that we've had with you guys and just how easy immersion chillers are, not only to use but to clean. And I think one of the big benefits to the counterflow chiller that you guys are making is that you just pop off some, silicone tubing and then shove a brush down in there, and you are ensuring that it's perfectly clean before you put that thing away.
Exactly. If you notice on our site, we don't sell anything that's not fully cleanable. A lot of different stores will sell stuff just because they can make money at it. But if we won't use it in our brew system, we won't sell it.
We could buy plate chillers super cheap and sell them for good money, but we don't.
Thank you for that, by the way. That's well. I guess last question: do you guys have anything new coming up, or more unique products that you guys are putting out there on the market?
Yeah, we do have a few things that we hope to get on the site pretty soon. We're still in some final testing of some of it, but a larger counterflow chiller. We're going to call it the Typhoon. It is essentially a kind of a double cyclone-ish chiller, where it's just for larger batches. We have some beta testers out there right now that are using it for 50 to 80 gallons. That they're giving us their numbers and the real world nano brewery to the bigger breweries. So yeah, there's some people testing it out, and so we're excited about that. And then we have a product called the Electric Chair that's coming out that we've been selling it actually for a couple of years, but it's always just been through email, kind of. We haven't actually gotten it on the site yet, but it's designed for electric brewers that want to use an immersion chiller, and you need to protect your element. So instead of resting the chiller on the element, which obviously no one should do ever, but it's a way to raise the immersion chiller off of the element and keep it protected while you're still having the ease and cleanability of an immersion chiller.
It's awesome. And I know you guys have got some really interesting stuff that we didn't really touch too much on. The corny pillar, which is for people who want to rack basically boiling wort or freshly finished boiling wort to say like a corny keg and then chill in there. You've got some stuff that is designed specifically for these new kind of all-in-one electric brewing systems like the Grainfather.
Yeah, we have a new, we have one based on the Hydra that'll be for the Grainfather. Obviously the coils are a little bit tighter and it's a little bit taller just because of the shape of the boil kettle on that. And then
it's also designed for like in the Grainfather, there's the filter on the bottom that a typical immersion chiller hits that, and so this is designed specifically so it doesn't hit it. And like Jeremy said, based on the Hydra, so you still get the wicked fast chilling times.
It's so awesome. It sounds like you guys are really covering kind of all of the chilling bases. I know that chilling has been the bane of many a brewer's existence, and you guys are making it a lot easier. I really appreciate the relationship that we've forged and everything that you guys are doing for homebrewing. Thanks so much for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Those guys, man, I'm telling you, if you've ever get the opportunity to meet Clay or Jeremy and hang out with them, not only are they making just the best chillers on the market, but they are cool people. And if you're in the market for a chiller, go to JaDeDBrewing.com, check out what they're selling. You're supporting home brewing by buying chillers through these guys, and you won't regret it. I mean, they really are as good as we say they are. I promise you. All right. In the last episode, I announced a new segment that we'd be integrating into each episode just to lighten things up a bit, where two of my best friends, also my neighbors, who love beer, though aren't necessarily in as deep as a lot of us, briefly review a beer that I serve them blindly. To kick things off, I had my friends Jersey and Tim review a beer that's released once per year and gets a lot of love from beer nerds. 2017 Hop Slam from Bell's Brewery.
1 minute beer review with Jersey and Tim. Oh yeah, I think we're supposed to smell it first, dude.
I smell nothing.
I smell nothing as well. If we were going for nothing, I'd call this a home run. It tastes like candy, dude. It tastes like candy. Hang on.
Hold on.
Well,
it doesn't taste like soap.
I was going to say, it doesn't taste like soap. If you ask Tim, it's going to smell like farts and taste like soap. But if we're not doing that, it's a win in my book. It tastes like candy.
I got a little juniper, though.
What is juniper? It tastes like candy.
It does have that lingering juniper taste. No.
What is juniper?
It's like a bush. No?
No, I don't taste. Actually, I know what it tastes like. To me, it tastes like Werther's Original. It tastes like a Werther's Original. It tastes like you melted a Werther's Original. Taste it again. Tell me it doesn't taste like a Werther's Original. If you were to,
I don't even know what a Werther's Original is.
If you were to mow your lawn and put the clippings in a Werther's Original, that's what I'm tasting.
That pretty accurate, kind of like a juniper.
Yeah, if you had a lawn of juniper and you mowed it and mixed it with Werther's Original, that's this beer. It's quite good.
Not so much.
I would drink it.
Yeah, I'm drinking it, but whether I like it or not, nah.
All right, when we get back, the tables get turned as Brülosophy becomes the participants in a Basic Brewing Radio experiment. Stick around. After a long brew day, the last thing I want to do is waste time chilling wort, which is why I use cleverly designed immersion chillers from JaDeD Brewing. After some bad experiences with counterflow and plate chillers, I began the search for a more efficient chilling solution and discovered JaDeD. That was nearly 4 years ago, and to this day, I continue to rely on the King Cobra and the Hydra to chill my wort in record time without the setup or cleaning hassle of other chillers. If you're looking for a way to optimize your brew day, I can't recommend JaDeD chillers enough. Go see what they have to offer at JaDeDBrewing.com and let them know Brülosophy sent you. It's commonly accepted that the timing of hop additions during the boil impacts the character of beer. Namely, that hops added at the beginning of the boil and left in for 60 minutes contribute to bitterness. Additions made halfway through the boil and left in for about 30 minutes or so contribute to flavor, and that hops added at the end of the boil, including flame out and whirlpool additions, contribute to aroma. Now, curious about claims regarding hops being wasted when used in the middle of the boil, the guys from Basic Brewing Radio designed a neat experiment in hopes of learning more about how hop timing impacts beer character. If you listen to Basic Brewing Radio, this was discussed on their May 25th, 2017 episode. Go check that out for their impressions and to listen to them do the experiment. But what we're going to do is we're going to travel back in time and play a recording of the Brülosophy guys being the participants in an experiment by Basic Brewing Radio. Whoa, my goodness. Well, look at this, what I walked into. I come walking into my room and there's like 40 homebrewers, and surprisingly, it's not as stinky as I expected it to be. But there's we got Franklin Hess and some friends that we met today from Growler Farms, new hop growers out of
Chautauqua, Wisconsin.
Out of a place in Wisconsin that we're really excited to work with. And right now we're drinking a beer from Eric. I wanted to talk to him a little bit about this beer. I heard that it's a Saison. I have no idea what's going on with this thing.
This is a pretty hoppy Saison. It's Citra, Mosaic, Belgian Saison. It's pretty standard. I think it has a bunch of spelt in it.
You think? Did you make it?
I definitely made it. It's about 6 months old, still pretty hoppy though.
So in 6 months you forgot what you put in it?
I could go look it up if you want.
No, I don't care. I don't care. Cool, man. Well, Eric, you're from ericbrews.com. GTA, you're president of the GTA Brews?
Yeah, GTA Brews Homebrew Club in Toronto, Canada. Come see us.
If you're ever in Toronto, yeah. That's a good beer. It's really tasty. So the main reason I walked up here is because the Brülosophy crew is going to be experimented on today, and by none other than the inspirational experimenters from Basic Brewing Radio. The folks that really inspired not only the experimenting, I think, on big part for a lot of homebrewers out there, but also the podcast, this Brülosophy podcast that we just started. And so what I'm going to do is hand the mic over to James for a bit. He knows how to handle this thing. While...
She said.
Oh, Lord. So we're going to hand the mic over to James. Let him explain a little bit. I do know that this experiment is a little bit different. We're not doing a triangle test necessarily. Or are we?
No.
Well, I'm going to hand it to James.
No. Okay, so this is an experiment that we did on our podcast. Well, if you're not going to know the variable, then we'll just let you taste these. No, actually, I'm going to tell you the variable. Because we knew the variable going in. Yeah. Say hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Now, the variable is, these are 3 1-gallon batches. They're all made with malt extract, and each is made with 1/3 of an ounce of Cascade pellets. In one beer, the Cascade pellets were added at 60 minutes. In the second beer, they were added at 30 minutes. In the third beer, they were added just at flame out. Now, they're randomized, so that's not the order. So your job is to pick out which one is which. And we were surprised at how hard it was back then. It's been a few weeks since.
So it might be different now.
Yeah, it might be different now. So.
Now, you guys recently did this. This was a recent episode that you guys did. Yeah, I recall listening to this one. All right, I'm gonna shut this thing off for a minute. We're gonna get to tasting, and then we'll go around and talk about our impressions.
There you go.
All right, well, here we are back from me being experimented on along with the other Brülosophy guys and a couple other folks, and we're gonna go before we announce what we think about this thing. We're gonna go around. Well, we're gonna announce what we think about this thing. Actually, before I let James announce what the truth is, we're gonna talk about our truth. So I'm gonna start first. Again, there was a beer that was hopped. Same beer, three versions of it, hopped either at 60 minutes, 30 minutes, or at flame out with 1/3 of a gram.
1/3 of an ounce.
1/3 of an ounce.
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, no, you ruined it for me. With 1/3 of an ounce of Cascade hops, right?
Right.
All right, and so this is a 1-gallon batch, so not a terribly hoppy beer, but enough that it should make an impact. And so, in my opinion, I'm going to go by the numbers that James wrote on the cups. I think 3 was hopped at 60 minutes, 2 was hopped at 30 minutes, and sample 1, which to me was much more aromatic, was hopped at flame out. Malcolm?
Yeah, so I have one as the most aromatic in my impression. So I think that's the flame out. It's really, so doing triangles is really difficult. That guy's drunk. Triangles is really difficult, and we say that a lot in some of our articles and stuff. So the bitterness is really screwing with me on 2 and 3. I think 2 is more bitter than 3, but it's really close.
So are you going to say that then, just based on that, you're going to say 2 was hopped at 60 minutes then?
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that we were talking about in the break there is that it seems like if you were to drink the more bitter beer first, that bitterness kind of lingers around.
Yeah, and I think it clouds your palate. So I think triangle test with these hoppy beers is even more difficult because as soon as you get that wash over and those oils are in your mouth, it seems like it's very difficult.
Matt Del Fiacco, what'd you think, man?
Yeah, no, I had a super tough time with it, but I think I ultimately landed on actually 2 being the most aromatic. So I think 2 was the flame out batch. I think 1 ended up being at 30 minutes. It was definitely a little more aromatic, but not as bitter in my opinion as 3. So 3 would be 60.
So we're way different on that one then. One of us is right more than the other.
You see what it's like?
Hey, we're not competing. Okay?
Yeah, you see, this is payback for you.
Brian Hall from Browry, whatever your brow.
Chugach, Browry Chugach.
That's right. .com with a dash in between. What'd you think, man?
I thought 1 was the most aromatic. 1 to me was the flame out. I thought I got 2, the most bitterness out of 2. And then 3 was kind of in between the 2. It was a little aromatic, but just real pleasant. I actually liked 3 the best, but I think 2 had the most bitterness to me.
So you say that 3 then. So you're like Malcolm. So you're saying 3 was the 30 minute.
3 was a 30, 2 was a 60, 1 was a flame out.
Awesome. Let's see, Jake. What did you think, man?
All right, so I got my cups lined up here so I could remember the numbers. I'm actually the same as Malcolm and Brian. I thought 2 was the 60, 3 was the 30, and then 1 was definitely the flame out. 2 and 3 were pretty hard to tell apart, though.
Yeah, that was now I feel like I should go back and taste them so I can join the crew here. But that was my experience as well, is that the bitterness between 3 and 2 was so similar, which I think that James is the most surprising thing to me, because you'd expect a 60-minute a beer that had the same amount of hops at 60 minutes to be far more bitter and way less aromatic than a beer that's hopped at 30 minutes with the same amount of hops, and that just didn't seem to be the case to my palate.
Are we ready for the answer?
I watched 1 be 60.
Yeah, right. We're all wrong. Yes, we are ready. Reveal the answer.
Number 1 was a flame out.
We all got it right. I think we all got it right.
Number 2 was a 60.
Number
3 was a 30. So, it's interesting that out of the 8 that had tested it up to this point, I think 5 got it correct.
Oh, wow. All three of them.
All 3 of them correct.
Wow.
So, you know, I don't know what that means statistically, probably nothing, but you're the statistics guy. So what was interesting to me, one of the things that I wanted to test with this was that some people say that if you're adding hops halfway through the boil, you're wasting the hops because you're not getting the most of the bitterness and you're not getting the most of the flavor and aroma. So what was your perception? I mean, do you think that this 30-minute addition was a waste, or do you think that it might, if you were to blend all these 3 together, which we did when we had more of these beers, did you think that it is a waste to add those hops at 30 minutes?
So that's a really good question. To me, number 2 and number 3, it was almost a guess. And what I did is I stopped drinking. I took a sip of some water, and I went back to them. And to me, the one that you're saying was hopped for 30 minutes, I perceived as being a little bit bitter. Which, is it a waste? I don't know. You use the same amount of hops, so does it matter? I guess it's a waste of energy, really, because you're boiling it longer, and maybe you just don't need to boil for 60 minutes, I don't. So I don't know. Malcolm, do you have any ideas?
Meh. No,
Okay, Matt, do you have any ideas?
No, man. Like I don't know. Like I'm not sure totally what goes on in the boil and like whether that 60 is still like a hard and fast number. But I mean, I had a super hard time telling these apart. And if I can use, if I need that bitterness to sort of balance out the sweetness, and you want to use less hops and sort of go about that 60-minute, that's still a solid option. But I think, especially like with the onset of some of these hoppier IPAs and like trying to emphasize some of those later things, that you're still getting a lot of the bittering qualities out of 30-minute additions. So
that's how I tried to differentiate the two that I thought were bitter versus the flame out. Was I went and looked for some aroma, and to me the 30 did carry over some what I perceived as some aroma. So
that's interesting because I was no, that's a good point because I wasn't paying so much attention. Once I picked out the one that in my head I felt like very confident at least that the flame out one, it does have more aromatic characteristics to me than the other two. I just nixed aroma. And I went for bitterness. I was going for, okay, this one's got to be more bitter. I'd love to get these tested in a lab.
Yeah. Now, Steve has an analogy to cooking and making sauces that you used when we were tasting these. Do you remember that analogy? It's been a while.
A sausage analogy?
A sauce.
Oh, sauces. Oh, I thought you said
sauce. It was, it was about when you make a really complicated sauce. You layer the flavor in a little at a time. And so, when you're making, I think I use some Marchand de Vin sauce, which is a very complicated French red wine sauce. And to do it right, it takes, a couple of days. And you make this big stock and you use all these vegetables and you keep cooking it down and cooking it down and cooking it down because you're layering flavor in. And so layering hop flavor in for all the different receptors that we have and perceptors that we have, that's what makes great beer.
And one thing that we don't have the luxury here because we don't have another set of bottles is we did some blending between the three. And we did find out that, to our perception, that the 30-minute edition did bring something to the beer. And it made it more kind of three-dimensional in a way.
Yeah, 30-minute editions. I know that, I hope I don't get this wrong, I think it was Matt Brynildson from Firestone Walker. He was talking about Pale 31. And I think he uses something like Fuggles at 30 minutes, that it's not so much for bitterness or aroma as much as it is for adding that hump in the middle of the beer, that thing that holds the beer up. And he likes to use something, my understanding is he uses domestic Fuggles. It could be somebody else, I don't know. But something like Willamette or Fuggles, or probably even a noble hop, like a German noble hop in the middle. And I've been doing that for a while. Since I heard that, I copied it. Yeah. And to me, it really does add something different, as opposed to, and we've all had those beers where they kind of fall flat and you can't really tell why. And a part of me wonders if it's maybe because whatever was in the middle there, whatever gets contributed from that 30-minute or kind of 20 to 40-minute hop addition time is just missing.
Well, and the other thing I'd say, too, is that, and I don't mean this to sound lazy, but there's a reason why when you learn to brew, like Charlie Papazian's book, and you pick it up the first time and it says, put your hops in at 60 minutes, put your hops in at 30 minutes, put your hops in at 15 minutes. There's a reason why tradition exists. Yeah. And, it's great to explore all this, but there's also value in standing on the shoulders of people that have been doing it for hundreds of years, and there's a reason why those hop additions exist in beer.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's, I was talking about this in our session yesterday about how, because we experiment with stuff, the assumption that a lot of people have is that our intent is to disprove tradition, when the reality is what we're most interested in is discovering new things about where stuff, and maybe some crap from tradition doesn't need to be done, but just like with this experiment, it really does seem that there is something you get out of these different hop additions when they're done at least independently. And I have to believe that when you combine them all together, like you said, tradition, well, not tradition necessarily, but the what we've learned over the years in brewing matters. That stuff actually makes a difference.
Yeah, there's a best practice aspect to it.
Indeed. Well, cool. Thank you guys so much for doing this with us. It was fun to be experimented on.
Yes. It was good to turn the tables.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sure if we don't chat before then, I'm sure we will, but we'll see you guys again in Portland next year.
You bet. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. So not only was that a lot of fun, just being a participant for once, which rarely, at least for me, I don't know about you, Malcolm, but I rarely get to participate in experiments now because I'm usually the experimenter. But I thought it was a really fascinating experiment.
Yeah, it definitely turned the tables because normally now when we do our experiments, for example, if you read the articles, it'll say our impressions and what we'll do is we'll administer it to ourselves semi-blind. It's not blind because we know the nature of the experiment. But in this case, he did reveal it to us, but it's different because you weren't tasting the beer along the way.
Right.
I feel a lot of times when we do our own experiments, I've watched this baby grow, so I know exactly what to look for and I can pick the beers out.
In many ways, though, with this experiment, to me, I mean, again, this wasn't a triangle test. These were three different beers served to us side by side in a random order. We were blind to what beers were in what glass, but we knew the variable. I'd already listened to the episode that I referenced before, so we knew what was going on. And to me, that gives us that. As I mentioned in the clip, that kind of gave me some guidance. It gave me an idea of what to look for. For example, I fully expected the beer that had the 60-minute hop to be more bitter than the beer that had the hop addition at 30 minutes, but was pretty shocked when the bitterness level of those was really difficult to distinguish for me.
Well, funny enough, and I had to apologize to James, is that I had not listened to the episode yet. I normally do my podcast listening, either working out or yard work, and I hadn't been working out too much, and work didn't have me doing yard work, so I just hadn't listened. But as soon as he told us what was going on, he said, it's a 60-minute edition, a 30-minute edition, and a whirlpool. So the first thing you think is like, well, one's going to be a lot more bitter than the other one, and you also think one's going to be a lot more aromatic. So we thought it should have been easy, and it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I will say that, and I don't mean to toot my own horn here. I feel like the Flame Out Edition beer was pretty. That was the first one where I was like, all right, that one I know. That one was definitely different. It was more aromatic, as expected. But that 60 and 30, I mean, I got it wrong. I thought the 30-minute was the 60-minute beer, and the 60-minute was the 30-minute. I know you, Jake, and Brian all got it right. But I think the takeaway with this, from this experiment, for me at least, is that, and this again, this sounds like it's kind of supporting myself and my own ideas, but we talk a lot about these short and shoddy brew days and reducing the length of a brew day. To be able to get that kind of bitterness, that quality of bitterness, at the same time as imparting some aromatic and flavor characteristics from a 30-minute edition, that's pretty cool to me. It shows that a 60-minute edition isn't necessarily required just to get that isomerization of the alpha acids, and that perhaps a 30-minute edition, as we've been showing, or at least as my experience has shown to me, a 30-minute edition works just fine for bittering.
Well, isomerization is just when it comes to this component, meaning of alpha acids in beer, it has a heat and time component, right? So the higher the heat, the faster the reaction, the more isomerization per unit time. Or at a lower temperature, you might need a longer time. But you can also counteract that just by having more hops. So if time is more important to you than hops, you can load up on more hops potentially. But if you boil for less time, there's potential for there to be more aroma and more essential oils carried over into the resultant beer. So, the whole brewer's thumbprint, which we've talked about in articles and the like, that might be something you're going for. Maybe you want to avoid the longer boil and carry over more. So you're almost doing like a bitterness / aroma addition at 30 minutes. And if that's what you're going for, that's great.
Yeah, right. And this is something that Matt and I were recently talking about, Matt Del Fiacco. This idea that just because they're different doesn't necessarily mean one is worse than the other one. I mean, I think the easiest analogy there is, serve me a Union Jack from Firestone Walker that's 2 weeks old, and serve me some other great beer that I love, a Pliny the Elder that's 2 weeks old. And those beers might taste different, but they're both fantastic beers, and they're both the same style. It doesn't mean that whatever process or ingredient differences that Firestone uses compared to Russian River, is worse or better than the other. They're just different, and that's okay.
Right. And how do you have wrong in a preference? Exactly.
So, well, I thought it was a lot of fun being a part of the participant pool on this one and not just the experimenter. And I hope actually that we get to do that a little bit more often. If anybody has any ideas, be sure to hit us up. You can email either of us, any of us actually, with our first names at brülosophy.com, and let us know you want to send us some experiments, and don't tell us what you did. Well, thanks to James and Steve and the whole Basic Brewing Radio crew for involving us in this. It's always fun getting together with them at Homebrew Con, and we definitely look forward to doing it again next year in Portland. We've got a quick break we got to take, but when we come back, something a little bit special. While I was at Homebrew Con, I bumped into some people that I'd been talking to just a couple weeks beforehand about a hop farm business that they are starting. If, like me, you prefer the simpler side of brewing beer, you have got to check out the Brew Bag, a food-safe fabric filter that allows for mashing of the finest crushed grain without risking the dreaded stuck sparge. I've been recommending these things since I started using them. They are awesome. The Brew Bag offers the only completely reinforced fabric filter for brewing that can be used over 100 times and comes in sizes that fit most mash tuns, or you can even have one custom made. Go check the Brew Bag out at brewinabag.com and be sure to use promo code TBP17 to get 10% off your order of $30 or more. So about 2 weeks before Homebrew Con 2017 in Minneapolis, I got an email from a guy named Andy Hall, kind of just introducing himself, telling me a little bit about what he's up to. He mentioned that he's starting a new hop farm in the Midwest. As luck would have it, I'm walking around the expo at Homebrew Con, and I bump into a very kind woman named Janelle, and she introduces herself as the wife of Andy. And so I thought it would be fun to pull them aside and get some details on what it is they're doing with hops. I'm here at Homebrew Con 2017 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with some really cool folks that I actually met online a little bit ago from Growler Farms. They're a new hop farm out of a city in Wisconsin that I can't pronounce, so I'm going to let you guys do that. But they've been really great, and we went out and we had a couple of beers and we went to lunch, and I thought it'd be really cool to let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they're offering the brewing world, home brewers and professional brewers, and have a little conversation with you guys. Andy, how are things going, man?
Thanks for having us, Marshall. Things are just going great. Janelle and I are in the middle of building a 9-acre hop yard in Chetek, 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 Wisconsin, which is just north of Eau Claire. So we're just about an hour and a half, a little longer outside of the Twin Cities. We live in the Twin Cities. We actually spend about 60% of our time there while we're getting our hop yard built, but we got a 9-acre hop yard that's being planted this year, and so we'll start have our first harvest next year, full harvest hopefully in about 2019.
That's so awesome. Are there specific varieties, hop varieties that you guys are focusing on up front, or?
We are actually going to try a lot of different varieties. We've learned that you don't really know what's going to succeed in a given microclimate. There's different terroir issues. Chinook is different in Wisconsin and Michigan than it is in the Northeast. We don't know which are going to be resistant to the specific pathogens we have. So we're going to try a lot of different varieties. We've got a couple that obviously we're going to put Cascade in the ground because everybody likes Cascade. We are really going to try to succeed with some of the German hops and some of the noble hops because they're very hard to grow. We are excited about a couple older New Zealand hops, Rakau, that we're going to be putting into heavy production because it's a pretty massive grower.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to give a lot of different types of shot, a lot of different cultivars.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was talking to Janelle today earlier about some of the kind of the ideas that you have moving forward when it comes to hop varieties and working with that. Is there anything you want to talk about in regards to the what you're kind of looking forward to with growing hops?
I think, the first thing we have to do is find out what wants to live in Northwest Wisconsin. It's been a long time. It's been since the late 1800s since there have been hops grown there. So what we can produce and what we can produce well and what we can bring to market is yet to be seen. That's where we're going to put our energy over the next several years, in addition to putting a lot of energy into promoting hops that home brewers want to buy and craft brewers want to buy.
How many hop farms are there in the Midwest or in this region at this point? Are there many? I know, Yakima Valley and the Willamette Valley of Oregon. I know those are two of the most, those are hotbeds, if you will. And you've got Cascade coming out of Argentina, and then of course New Zealand right now is just kicking ass with the hops that they're doing.
And Australia.
Australia, Galaxy, and the wonderful things they're doing. Yeah, grow some of that over here, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge is not to compete with the Yakima Valley. I mean, we were talking to the Yakima Valley hops guys today, and they are so supportive of what we're doing because we're trying to serve a different market. In terms of the number of hop farms there are in Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota, they're growing rapidly, but a lot of people are putting in 1 acre, 2 acres, or even a half acre, giving it a shot. There's, the Michigan Hop Alliance, Gorse Valley, Great Lakes Hops. I mean, there's a couple different, sort of groups that are working together. Wisconsin Hop Exchange. So there's a growth and there's a lot of support from each other. I mean, we go to these conferences, we talk to other hops growers, and they're so supportive. Everybody's in this to see everybody else succeed because it's a huge market. I mean, there's a lot of demand for specialty hops. There's a lot of demand for quality. And so if you bring quality to the market, people are going to buy.
One of my absolute favorite things about being in this industry, and I'm on the homebrew side, and I do, all my stuff is mostly homebrewing related, but hops spans, the ingredients we use span, of course, homebrewing and professional brewing, is just the camaraderie and the support of everyone else around you. I mean, we were just recording an episode of Basic Brewing Radio, another podcast, and we love each other and we're high-fiving and having fun. That's something that I find really appealing about this industry, really, more than just a hobby.
Absolutely.
I actually have to speak to that. Having virtually left the medical profession and walked away clean and not ever looked back, I love being a hops farmer. I love being outside. I love the industry. I've never worked with a more energetic, forward-thinking, optimistic, just amazing group of people. There isn't anyone in the craft brew industry that I haven't loved when I've met them. They're artists. They're creative. They're smart. They span from geeks to jocks. I mean, there is nobody who doesn't love beer. Yeah. And so it's a fantastic industry to be a part of, and to be on the supply side of something that's burgeoning and being able to be creative and artistic and be a part of something that's so special. There are no words.
The thing for us is that we are really excited about the possibility of going to, whether it's a craft brewer or having a homebrew competition where it's our hops and where we can taste our hops in a beer, and that we can provide that quality to different brewers and have them experiment with different. We just were in that for the Brülosophy 30-minute, 60-minute, flame out experimentation. It's like, how cool would that be? I mean, just to have that, try different things like that, and the experimentation with hops and different varieties and different ways of using hops in beer.
Well, I'm really excited. We've already talked a little bit about getting us some hops to play with, and the one problem with that, of course, is that after we do that, people are going to be wondering, well, where the hell can I get me some of these hops? So I guess maybe what we'll finish with is, when do you think your guys' hops will be available, and how can people get them? And my understanding, based on conversations we have earlier, is you guys are going to start off with dried whole cone hops. And not pelletizing them up front, or are you guys going to pelletize?
Well,
we'll probably contract.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of smaller or other farms around that can pelletize for us, but we won't build the pelletizing facility. We're hoping to promote wet hop brewing, both in the home brewing industry and the craft brewing industry locally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really where we're. That would be our focus. Obviously, we will produce hops. We'll dry cone. We'll pelletize. We'll do what our customers want, but we really want to create a wet brew industry, a wet hopping industry in the Midwest, because we're singularly located. I mean, we're in Northwest Wisconsin. We're 9 hours from St. Louis. We're 6 hours from Chicago. We're by Duluth, Minneapolis,
right
Madison,
next to
Milwaukee. I mean, wet hop Brewing has not been part of...
We're in the beer belt.
Yeah, we're in the beer belt. And Wet Hop Brewing hasn't even been an option for home brewers. And we want to create an opportunity for them to try something new. There's so many facets to brewing, and we just want to be a part of extending those.
Right. Yeah. We're, it seems like unless you grow your own hops, you don't have an option to brew with wet hops. And skeptic that I am, there's a lot of talk about how, if you brew with wet hops, you don't get the quality as if you dried them out, which I've never brewed with wet hops because I don't grow hops. I'm a terrible green thumb. I kill everything I put in the ground.
We may not be able to provide the hops to home brewers until 2018. But if homebrewers wanted to be a part of the process, we have a co-hop program. If you check out growlerfarms.com, you can get more information on that. Homebrewers in the area, as far away as Chicago, can come up, spend a couple hours standing on a shovel, helping us out, and planting some plants here in a few weeks. And they can get a share of the hop yard, so they can be a part of the process from the beginning at the ground level.
Hell yeah, man. I love that. Yeah. Be a part of the next big thing. It's obvious that you guys love the industry. You guys love beer. I know you love beer because we've been drinking it together all afternoon. But you guys are so rad. And I love seeing people with so much enthusiasm about particularly hops and, because of just how big hops are. And in many ways, it's sort of validating to me that the bubble's not bursting. The bubble is growing maybe a little bit slower, but it's being enriched. There's an enrichment to what's going on, and I love that. And you guys are awesome. And so that's growlerfarms.com. If anybody wants to go check it out, you guys' hops will be available probably 2018 is what you're saying?
Absolutely, Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be hoping to, we wouldn't dare sell the first year, right? Because they have to have a chance to grow and mature. So, if you're a florist and you want us to take care of your weddings and those kinds of things, we'll be happy to sell you our hops. But homebrewers, no, we're only going to sell you the best that we can offer.
Oh, that's good stuff. I know you'll give us probably not so much best, but we're going to test it. I'm just joking.
We're going to send you the prime cut to test.
And we will be doing some testing. We've already talked about the Hop Chronicles. We'll get some hops. We'll get you guys out there. Really awesome talking with you. Andy, Janelle, thank you so much for joining me. So Andy and Janelle really are awesome people. I love their passion. I love their enthusiasm and the fact that they really are in this to make beer better and they're looking at homebrewers and they want us to be the ones who really blow this up. To me, that's really cool. And I just, again, this industry is so full of awesome people. I really appreciate Andy and Janelle, what they're doing and for taking the time out of their day to let me interview them. Well, that's our show for today. You can look at ways to support us by going to brülosophy.com/support. Don't forget to check out the rewards you can get for helping us out at patreon.com/Brülosophy. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to keep up with what we're doing. Please send show feedback and your Brew&A questions to Marshall at Brülosophy.com. Cheers to all of our sponsors. We would not be here without them. We will be back in a few short weeks with the next episode of the Brülosophy podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey cause it soothes my throat. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman no more.